I'm just gonna have to use this. So,
You just can't use that audio.
yeah, because we can't.
I don't know why it's not letting us.
I think we've had this every time.
Yeah, just
So-
use that.
Everybody on? Can you hear me? Brandon, Drew,
Yep,
Brett,
can hear you.
awesome. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, but we're good to go. So apologize for the holdup. So we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a good presentation today on accident investigations. So we've got several people here, and then the majority of the viewers are all online, it looks like, on Zoom. Again, we'd like just to kind of reiterate, we'd love to have in-person involvement with these, but obviously some members are spread out somewhere in Idaho and Montana, which makes sense. But really would like to push for in-person engagement. Our partner, both partners, our underwriters on the Zoom call as well. And then we've got our in-person Zurich risk engineer here. But the topic's going to be with regards to accident investigation. We also have a presentation that will be through Liv Technologies. They do some really cool stuff from automation and cameras and as well as in investigation to mitigate your risks and claims. We'll kind of forego the introductions just because of time and kind of the slow start, but we will turn the time over to Chris Cousins and Tim Walter to jump straight into the workshop.
Thank you, Grady. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Glad that you're here. Sorry for the late start, a little technology issues. I think we're going to start with Liv Technologies for their presentation. If you want to start us off and get going on that. Is that how we want, or do we want to shuffle? Okay. So Jameson, if you want to come up and just in terms of agenda, we'll go with Liv Technologies first, and then we'll launch into our accident investigation discussion. Tim is our master presenter here, Tim Walter. I think you all know Tim. Tim's very good. We appreciate his time being here. And then I'll intermingle with Tim a little bit in his presentation. And we've got a couple of things. So we appreciate Colonial Building Supply being here for some discussion on a learning management system that is supported through Zywave here within Morton and Sequoia. And we'll probably take it to that point of the meeting, and we'll get going here.
If any questions come up, feel free to use the messenger on Zoom. We'll address those at any time.
Okay, well, thank you. My name is David Studdert. I'm one of the founding partners of LiveView Technologies. Started in 2005, been in business just about 20 years now, going on 20 years. Ish. But our goal was to provide a platform that you could pull data sets from remote locations. So I went through the list of who's here today. Sounds like we got a lot of people online as well. And there's not a single company in this room who doesn't manage assets from a security perspective. There's no one here that's not represented in our current client list from a market perspective. We do everything from DoD to Al's Towing and everybody in between. If you go to pretty much any Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's in America outside of Utah, you'll see our systems that look much like, let me go back to that one. These trailer platforms, solar-based, a lot of technology in the top end. People confuse us with a hardware manufacturer. We do build all these systems in-house, right in our facilities in Orem, Utah. But we're not concerned, right? The hardware is a delivery. The technology and the data sets that it provides is really the output of our platforms. So we're a group that really builds technology, and it's an off-grid platform using solar and cellular technologies to provide you data sets that you're not going to get in any other way. I want to run really quickly through, again, hardware, right? I'm sure you're all familiar with the cameras that you use to protect your people and your assets. But we do more than just providing camera systems. We use a lot of, again, data. We use data a lot. Data for us is king. As you can see from this picture, again, using a hardware configurations, we do a ton in the thermal spectrum. If you've got assets that you're protecting through traditional methodologies, you got cameras on your stores or whatever, this is usually what you see. Using thermals, this is what you see. Again, we want to bump up that data platform so you get more information for your specific use cases. You're all probably deploying some level of security. Again, it can be access control, it can be cameras, it can be a myriad of different products. We talk about cost of ownership. If you say, hey, listen, I'm in the construction space and I can do this stuff on my own. I can go put out a temporary pole and I can go to a store and I can buy a camera. Cost of ownership is usually pretty exorbitant, right? Our goal is to make you the best at what you do. The perfect example of that is Kroger. We do Kroger nationally. So all the brands in Kroger, they just bought Albertsons, so our portfolio is getting bigger with Kroger. We want them to be the best grocers. We don't want them to have a security team that takes them away from their core competencies. So we do that as a managed service for them. Anything outside the front of their stores, that's where we play best. Instead of trenching across the parking lot and bringing in traditional hardline, both power and comm links, we can roll our systems out and then in under about 30 minutes, be completely live, cross-line detection, license plate recognition. You really pick the data set and we can provide it. So, you know, if you say, hey, listen, we can do it better, faster, stronger on our own, you might be able to. But our goal is always to say, hey, listen, let's look at core competencies and what can we provide you where you don't have to manage the ownership side? Because there's always, you know, not only building it out, but then you got to service it and support it and maintain it. And those are very complicated things to do. So our goal is to be able to put stuff out in the field, continually iterate and innovate that technology. We found out in the 18 years of business that if we deploy the greatest bell and whistle today, it's going to be obsolete in about 18 months. Because it's just changing that fast. Autonomous alerts, right? We're moving the needle from traditional aspects. I don't know how many of you used a man guard type application where we're putting the human element into the space during off hours or to mitigate potential risk during business. But our goal is to say, hey, listen, we understand the crunch of the labor markets. COVID kind of changed a lot of businesses to say, hey, I can't find anybody to go out and do this. I can't pay him. I don't want to. It's cost prohibitive. There's overtime. They don't show up to work. There's a million reasons. We take a lot of this technology and we replace it with, we replace that traditional application of the human element. So I don't know how to play this. Can I just push next and that'll work? Let's try this.
Is there a video on there?
Yeah.
Might be yeah, somewhere.
All right, we might have to just imagine the video.
Oh, yeah, it's a PDF. Do you want me to see if I can pull it up on the?
Yeah, pull it up. The videos are worth seeing.
Okay.
All right, imagine with me while we're figuring this out. Anytime someone, I'll give you a good example while we're working on this. If I get out of my car at a Lowe's in Memphis, Tennessee, traditional behavior says I walk from my car to the front skirt of the store. And use this, try to get creative on how this applies to your specific use case. Traditional behavior says this is X. This is the model of normal behavior. Anomaly analytics will say, okay, anything outside of normal behavior, I want to watch. I want to make sure that we're paying attention. So if I get out of my car at Lowe's in Memphis, Tennessee, and I begin to serpentine through cars, not normal behavior, our cameras will pick that action up. And usually that's a smash and grab guy, right? That's someone who's out there looking for something in cars. So our cameras will track it. They'll alert the people in the store and say, hey, listen, this is the behavior in your store. So again, using really advanced analytics and data sets, we can begin to mitigate risk before it happens.
almost there.
We're almost there?
Yeah.
So autonomy, we want to be able to, again, take more away from you, have less human interaction because it can be pricey. There's a lot of liability that we try to mitigate with human interaction when it begins to escalate. We like to de-escalate that situation using, again, advanced technology. Okay, let's give it a go. See if we can get this thing. I'm glad you're doing that. I would have crashed the system now.
There we go.
Okay, that should hopefully work. You'll have permission to play 2 media objects
So,
and make me request it from you guys.
Taylor, do you know how that works?
secured.
Requesting access.
I know, it's always
Yeah.
something. Well, in this particular use case, these guys showed up at one of our customer store. Again, we do their national footprint. Catalytic converters is a big deal for them. They lose about, at one point, they were losing 300 catalytic converters a month on their fleet of vehicles. These guys pull up, they back into a stall, the guy's walking across the lot, and our systems, at this point, they're cued to watch any human being, right? So they'll qualify an animal versus a human. If a human enters that lot anytime between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., it'll automatically talk down to them. And we'll escalate this while our monitoring staff is logging in and watching live. So we didn't even get to the point where we had to say to them live. The system said, hey, our hours are X, we're watching you. They turned around and left. Very pretty simple solution. But again, remember, this is on an off-grid platform with no traditional means. We're not plugging in and we're not using their Wi-Fi, all off-grid. The next one I was going to show you is when our monitoring staff logs in and de-escalates the system. This was actually one that was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, sorry, it's like, I don't know where to get the access.
We'll just
move on.
move on.
Okay.
It's too bad because this is really cool video. This one is actually even.
Can you mail us the video?
Yeah, we'll send you the deck and you guys can watch these. This thing doesn't work now, but I will try and figure out how.
Click on the page and maybe it'll just click
Re-
anywhere
re-
and then it should exit. Start working.
Oh, there we go. All right, this one, imagine this, right? Picture one of your parking lots, it's 3 a.m, cars pull up. Every guy in this spot has an automatic weapon. This guy's got a long barrel. If the video played, you see them getting at it. This particular customer just came out of a $100 million wrongful death suit in the same region. So our monitoring staff logs in, I think we were 4 seconds between the time of alert and someone actually logging on to this site and talking down and saying, hey, guys, bad idea. Law enforcement's been called. Everybody puts their gun away, gets in their cars and leaves. So return on investment of deploying technology in this case was massive. These guys light it up in this parking lot and it's going to cost people a lot of money. So, and we've got just tons of these videos that actually show the value of adding technology.
What's the resolution like on facial?
So again, depending on what configuration is deployed, we do Kansas City Chiefs, all of their parking lots on game days. They can read a license plate at about a quarter mile.
Oh, wow.
So you again, technology is advanced to the point where, again, we also deal with hey, I watch CSI and I want to zoom in and repixelate this picture. That's not how technology really works, right? There's limitations to what we can do, but it is advancing every single day. Mm-hmm. This is another one where these guys have already hit this spot multiple times. We showed up, deployed our technology. They show up this night and you can see the guys crawl out from under these cars. We talk down and they all look up and they all run together. We'll send you the video. It's pretty good. We've got lots of video from over the years. As you can see though, across the board, we're reducing incidents by 70%. We have a big box retailer in the Portland area. They had a specific store. They took the 12 months prior. They had 15 shootings the year prior in this store. The year after deploying, they had 0 shootings in that store, right? It changes the behavior of people. A, show of force, B, advanced technology, aggregating data sets across locations. Some of our locations are up against, if I don't steal $1,000, I can't be prosecuted. So they're walking in, stealing everything they can, walking out. We're beginning to aggregate and compile data sets. So say, okay, this particular individual we just went over 1,000. Now we can prosecute this individual. Tons of technology out there at your disposal. Our goal really is to say, hey, let us look at your thing. We're not going to sell you something you don't need, but we really had a lot of good traction, specifically over the last 7-8 years. When we started COVID, we had 40 employees. We now have 480. By the end of 2023, we should have over 1,000. We're just scaling and trying to provide technology that, again, we want you to be the best at your business. We feel like we're really good at ours, and we want to show you. We want to show you what we can do in the space. So if there's any interest, Taylor, the guy in the back's your guy. He dragged me out because he, say hi, Taylor. So any questions on LiveView Technologies, what we're doing, how it might impact your bottom line? Okay.
I got a question. So how has it helped with like plaintiff attorneys that want to litigate immediately and blame the property owner or the contractor for the loss? Has it helped speed up that litigation process so they rescind any type of lawsuits or?
Oh yeah, when there's video, we have, again, we'll add this to what we send you. We have a video where these contractors took this forklift up to the second floor, and they had this box on there, and you can see him talk, and then you see the guy jump off the second floor. He jumped, right? He claimed it was neglect of the GC, and he broke his leg. I mean, it's pretty funny. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah.
But the second we got the video,
It's funny in a sad.
it's sad, right? And you guys see this. People try to build the system, right? And when there's video, usually it changes the behavior. When people know there's video, their behavior changes. We do a lot of business intelligence where people, I mean, contractors use this for theft prevention, but they also use it to manage, their subs.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as speed of prosecution, it goes both ways, right? And video is a data set that's incredibly powerful. We as you drive around the state of Utah, you'll see poles with solar panels and cameras on all the roads. That's our infrastructure. We deal a lot in a lot of different environments, but really when it comes to prosecuting, you can't beat a good video. Any other questions?
Are these mostly used outdoors and parking lots and everything? Do you have any cases where you install systems inside warehouses or?
We try to stay outside, just because that's our core competency. We do have some vendors that are using our technology on the inside. If you go into a Home Depot and you put multiple DeWalt tools in your cart, if you put more than 3 DeWalt tools, our cameras will say, hey, nobody buys 4 DeWalt tools at one time. That guy's going to be a push out, right? So our analytics will say, okay, he's got 4 yellow boxes in this thing. It sends out a text message to their asset protection folks in the store. They then go say, hey, can I help you with that card? And usually they say, no, I'll put it back, right? Because take a stab at what, and I won't list them by name. I'm sure it's public, but I don't want to get any. There's a big box retailer who sells home construction stuff. Their logo is orange. Any idea what they lose annually? What their shrink is annually? This blew my mind. $4.2 billion a year is what they lose annually, right? It's big business. And with organized retail crime spinning up, it's getting bigger business. So we're always trying to iterate and innovate technology, stay ahead of their next move. But it's becoming a bigger problem than it has been traditionally. And as you see defund the police and civil unrest, the problems just keep coming. And so for us, we're really doubling down on the technology side and how we use combined efforts. We're a platform. So another good example is if I'm at a big box retail store and there's a gunshot, well, we talk to all the other systems. So now I can say, get gunshots here. We know caliber, directionality. We're now going to pull all the MAC addresses from the parking lot. Now I have a list of 100 suspects instantly, right? We know everybody that's in the parking lot. And also our systems will talk to the store and say, hey, shut these doors, have the horns push people out the other side of the store. We're really interested in life safety. That's our why. Our mission statement is to make the world a more safe and secure place. My mom shops in these stores, so we take it really, really serious on how we make our world more safe and secure. And that's really why we get out of bed.
So,
Any other questions?
any questions on Zoom? There's got to be some out there.
We're happy to send all the information. If you have any questions, you've got Taylor's contact information, and
Yep.
I've got some cards for you guys.
We will send out these decks and the videos for everybody to review, but just want to thank Liv for coming and yeah. Sorry, live view.
We've been called worse.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. That is interesting. I bet you there's at least 3 or 4 of those within 2 miles of my house.
Now you know what to do.
Yeah, and I stare at them every time too. I gotta hide my face now. This last summer, my wife and I were visiting family in Germany. And a cousin took us for a walk through the woods, and we came on a construction site for one of their wind turbines, which, by the way, are at least twice the size of any of ours. Huge. But it was a construction site. They had one of these things picked up on us, and this big, deep voice with a thick German accent said, "I see you."
Do the job.
And then as soon as he said, "Polizei," we took off looking. Because they had us. So, yeah, they're effective. Where's my clicker?
Escape. And then pull up the PowerPoint at the bottom.
Okay, action investigation. So we had touched on this. In one of our first workshops, just a little bit. So we're gonna dive a little bit deeper on it this time. I'm not clicking. Oh. There we go. Yeah, pass on the introductions. There are at least 4 good reasons for conducting accident investigations: to plan focused corrective action to prevent a similar action or injury from happening again. That's the most basic reason. And we'll talk about all these in more detail. To ensure employee receives appropriate treatment and workers' compensation benefits. And when I say appropriate, I mean we want him to have all he deserves and not anything he doesn't deserve. So that means we're going to turn up fraud sometimes, as well as qualified causes and reasons. And to protect and defend your company from false claims or litigation, work comp fraud, and genuine and visible concern for safety equals positive morale. When you are acting out safety conspicuously, when your workers can see you concerned about safety, their safety in particular. And one really good way to make that, to broadcast that is with, with accident investigations. Should we investigate every incident, accident, or insurance claim? What do you think? Well, professionally, we're obligated to say, oh, absolutely, you investigate every accident. You're going to investigate every paper cut. Your investigation is going to cost more than the paper cut did. So you probably won't. But hopefully by the end of the workshop, we'll have a better handle on what we do need to investigate every time. Sometimes we say, well, let's in our health and safety plan, let's set a threshold. Let's say every lost workday claim. Let's say every property damage over $500. That there's still going to be gaps though. There's still going to be incidents or accidents that didn't meet either of those criteria, but you should have investigated. And that's particularly true with near misses, which I think is a silly name for close calls, but Every management function has a process, components that shouldn't be overlooked. These elements of the accident investigation process are initial response, fact-finding, analysis and review, corrective actions, and follow-up. Initial response is going to vary with the incident. You know, if there's blood, you want to respond pretty quickly. If there's fire, you're going to respond pretty quickly. You want to respond promptly to all of them, but some of them are going to trigger a little bit more of an emergency than others. Fact finding, we're going to talk about that in detail. That's just going to be everything that's going to help tell a story, whether it's just for your own benefit and designing safer operations, or to be prepared for court litigation. All the details that are gonna help you in either of those. Analysis and review, once you've got all those details buttoned up, or I should say packaged up, you can start reviewing them, and they're gonna start to direct you to creative solutions to that particular safety issue. And then follow up, whatever your corrective actions are, somebody's gonna be assigned, probably somebody's gonna be assigned to oversee that corrective action or take care of those details. It might be more than one person who's going to put a date on it and say, I'm coming back at that date to make sure these things are done. There's a difference between an accident and an incident. An accident is an unexpected, undesirable, and unfortunate event arising out of an employee's work which results in property damage or physical injury. An incident is an unexpected, undesirable, and unfortunate event arising out of an employee's work which could have resulted in property damage or physical injury, but no damage or injury occurred. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Somebody comes right in and tells you there's been an accident, or there's a piece of equipment has collapsed out in the yard. You need to come. So you go out there, and some guys were working on erecting this particular piece of equipment, or let's just say some racking for material out in the yard. It collapsed. Some damage, not much. Nobody was hurt, but it really made a big noise. So it got a lot of people excited. You get excited and you say to the workers there, do you realize what could have happened here? What are they probably going to say? Yeah, but it didn't. What's the big deal? Nobody got hurt. Well, it is a big deal. It's a good thing that nobody got hurt, but it's still a big deal. The dynamics of an accident and an incident are exactly the same. Don't assume that an accident is minor because the consequences aren't serious. Serious accidents arise out of the same hazards that produce minor incidents. In other words, somebody's working on a table saw, there's a kickback, that material goes right past them. Or are you showing that to me?
Just the mic is right.
Oh, okay. Material kicks back, but it goes right past them, no big deal, no mention of it to anybody. A few weeks later, working on a similar project, cutting material on a table saw, it finds and kicks back, and this time it injured somebody fairly seriously. That's because they didn't address it the first time it happened. The first time it happened, they could have put some board dogs on there or some kind of guard device, whatever, to keep that from ever happening again where somebody could get hurt. And that's where it's critical to address near misses or close calls just as quickly as real bona fide accidents. Serious accidents arise out of the same hazards that produce minor incidents. What should we investigate? Well, there's that question again. Do we investigate every accident? Employee and non-employee injuries and illnesses. GL isn't part of it. package, is it? Oh, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Both work comp and GL then are going to be impacted by accidents. You know, most of the time, we're going to be dealing with employee injuries, but there certainly could be collateral damage that affects the public. Environmental incidents, you're legally obliged to investigate those. Vehicle accidents get perhaps a little bit more complicated, and you can benefit from a police report there, but still there's going to be some internal issues to address. Security incidents, thank you very much. And property damage and near misses. Professionally, we call them near misses. The guys over a beer after work are going to call them close calls. Unsafe or at-risk behaviors occur because employees are either unaware of the hazards they face and consequently do not know that special precautions are necessary, or they're unable to perform in a safe way because they aren't properly trained, aren't physically capable, or the work environment prevents them, or they're unmotivated to consider working safely. We've talked at length before about new employee safety orientation. This is where that comes in. They're going to have no excuses. You're not unaware, and you shouldn't be unable, because you know that in your original orientation, if you're unable for some reason, ask for help. And they shouldn't be unmotivated, because your disciplinary program should be made clear to them. So that's what makes new employee orientation vital. Unsafe equipment or conditions occur because they're unnoticed, not identified during scheduled or informal inspections or preventive maintenance or unobservant workers, or uncorrected. They've been identified, but not been eliminated or controlled. And stuff happens where maybe you haven't identified an issue or haven't considered having enough gravity to address it right away, but then there's an accident. Now you've identified it, and it rises to the top of your priority list. We're going to look for causes. When we start investigating an accident, we're looking for causes. Causes are correctable. Think of accident causes from two perspectives. The first perspective is the immediate or proximate cause. What was the employee doing immediately before the incident that caused the injury? Immediate cause might help explain at-risk behavior, that's the human element, that led to the accident or injury, such as using a dull blade, but was using a dull blade because they acted carelessly, they were inadequately trained, there were no sharp blades available. Using a sharp blade can't be a cause because it's meant to be that way. If the injured employee was supposed to use this tool for this job, then it cannot be a cause because there's nothing to correct. In other words, they're cutting material with a mat knife and it's a dull knife. They're supposed to go get a sharp blade, put a sharp blade in it for making cuts. It was a dull blade. They didn't feel like going to the tool crib and getting sharp blades. So they're working with a dull blade. They got hurt. That's correctable. But they did get a sharp blade. They're using a sharp blade and still they get hurt. You're not going to blame the blade because it's supposed to be sharp. And by the way, stupid is never a cause either. That nullifies your accident investigation. So you kind of get where I'm going with that. Cause is a correctable. There's a proverb that I ran across: don't look where you fell, but where you slipped. And that gets into the immediate cause and the root cause question. Walking across the room, slipped on a banana peel, stumbles around, falls, hits her head on the corner of the desk, blah, 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 the whole chain of events that happens. It's not the corner of the desk. It's not the floor. It's not slippery shoes. It's the banana peel that caused the accident, and it's correctable. Oops. The second perspective besides the immediate or proximate cause, is the root cause. Root causes are the systems, operations, or procedures that lead to unsafe behaviors or conditions. The root cause is the most fundamental cause that can reasonably be corrected. So that's what's going to take a little bit digging to get to, because it's usually not immediately obvious. But we ask enough questions, do enough digging, and depending on the scope of the accident, how broad our investigation is, we'll get to that root cause. W. Edwards Deming was an engineer, business consultant, writer, lecturer, thinker about business efficiencies. And he said 94% of all outcomes are the result of management decisions. So there's been an accident, you start asking questions, you start looking at paperwork, you start looking at previous accident investigations, that kind of thing. And the deeper you dig, the closer you get to the finger pointing at management for decisions that they make. 94%. So we'll come back to a kind of a demonstration of that. Whoever the investigator is, and my recommendation is, and it's going to depend on the situation, but my recommendation is if it's a relatively serious accident, you probably don't want the immediate supervisor to do the investigation, because they're going to have some involvement and they're going to have some blame, and they're going to skip over that part in their investigation. So it's better to have a supervisor, maybe from another department, or if you have a safety manager whose sole responsibility is those sorts of things, they'll do it, but probably not their immediate, the injured party's immediate supervisor. But whoever they are, whoever you choose, they should have some basic qualifications. Technical knowledge of health and safety. They're going to want to have a good knowledge of OSHA regulations. They want to have a good knowledge of your own safety rules. They want to have a good knowledge of your health, your written health and safety plan. Otherwise, they're just asking questions to ask questions. Familiarity with the job, the process, or the operation. That particular machine, that particular route on that driver's schedule, those sorts of things. Integrity, honesty, and objectivity is going to be huge. Not covering up anything. You know, I've known this kid for 30 years. You know, I'm going to soft pedal this a little bit. Well, no, you can't do that. On the other side of that, the injured party should be confident that you're not going to come down with a heavy hammer on them because they've had an accident. They can be honest. They can present the facts fairly, and know that they're not going to lose their job or something because they answered questions like honestly, and the investigator is going to act the same. Have an analytical approach to problems, not superficial, but kind of think a little bit deeper, a little bit out of the box. Tactful communication skills, and that's where they're going to communicate. You're not in trouble. We just want to get to the bottom of this and make sure that we don't create hazards for somebody else. And a natural curiosity. You know, asking questions is going to be a big part of this, and you can stop asking questions too soon, but a healthy curiosity is going to carry it. When do we investigate? Well, before the trail is cold, which means you want to get on it as promptly as possible. The longer the delay in investigating an accident, the greater the possibility of getting erroneous, misleading, or incomplete information. It'll help for you to have a crash kit on hand, and that's a whole lot easier to do now than it used to be with cell phones and equipment that's available to us already packaged up. Graph paper just so that you can sketch the scene and do it fairly accurately. Use your phone for camera and or audio video recorder. We'll talk about this just a little bit more in a minute, but I suggest when you're taking pictures to take stills and not videos. Now, here's what happens. If there should be litigation about this particular accident, there's going to be discovery, which means every attorney involved on both sides is going to have access to information the opposing attorneys have. And when they do, they're going to look at everything with a microscope. So you figured it. I don't want to stand here taking a dozen pictures. I'll just do this and take a video of the whole scene, and then that'll just make it so much more convenient. Well, you're looking at the accident, the evidence right here. They're looking for evidence of similar sorts of negligence in the background of this video you just took. It's different than your parking lot units where the video is going to be preferable. But for our purpose as an accident investigation, here's blood on the floor here. I'm going to take a picture of that. Here's a pile of tools right here. I'm going to take a picture of that. I'm going to put a ruler in there on the small things so that they have a sense of scale. But still pictures are going to be a whole lot better. Getting close, get the details, don't show any peripheral stuff. And that's a problem with video. Yeah, you see the rest of this. If there's blood, don't forget PPE. Your priorities, your first priorities, not first priorities, but high priorities are to provide emergency rescue and medical help for the injured. That's going to be first before anything else. You're not asking questions or moving material or anything like that. Prevent or minimize the risk of further accidents or physical harm to the victim or others. You're going to do a temporary fix on hazardous material, racking, guards, whatever, so that nobody gets hurt until you wrap this thing up. Notify a supervisor. Oh, how to do that? Report fatalities, disabling, significant and serious injuries or illness to UASH within 8 hours. That's their verbiage. There's quite a bit of detail on their website what each of those are, but actually that's stricter and more demanding than federal OSHA. And notify insurance claims personnel as soon as possible. Obviously, you're going to initiate the investigation before you call insurance, but you're going to call insurance very shortly. Speaking of that, let's bring on Mr. Chris Cousins, who's going to introduce something.
Thank you, Tim. So for those of you here in the room, we've handed out a little handout, little piece of paper, old school. Looks just like this in front of you. What it is Sequoia Risk has developed a nice little online reporting tool where you can, by your phone or your if you have an iPad or something like that, you can scan that QR code. It will take you right to what you see on your screen here, this notice of loss alert, where you can actually enter information in, as opposed to if you want to traditionally follow a piece of paper with a notice of loss report, first notice of injury or first report of injury form, that's fine. But this is an electronic version of that helps you navigate through some of the questions to investigate incidents and provide that to here at Sequoia. And we will, most of you or many of you have worked with Jason Medico here at Morton to help file some of your claims and provide that to the carriers, okay? And this is just simply front-ending that process. Still goes to Jason. Jason may have some follow-up questions for you to complete that claim record. But this is a nice little tool to help you facilitate that. Generally speaking, we don't like your hourly or your frontline employees doing this. We prefer a safety person or a member of management that has that responsibility to maintain control or access to that, because that comes right into our office. It's an electronic record, goes right to Jason, and he will go through that traditional process of filing and reporting that claim, whether it's workers' comp, GL, or auto. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? So that's new. Use it. If you have questions or concerns, drop us an email, give us a call, say, hey, Chris, that's not quite right. Or, hey, this works great. We're really liking that. And we can talk through that process of how that claim filing works in greater detail if you have further questions. Okay.
This is Brandon Bird on the call right here. So
Yeah.
does he do this for workers' comp as well? We've kind of been under the deal where we needed to go on to Zurich's website ourselves and do it, but is this going to mitigate that so that we don't have to do that anymore?
No, it doesn't mitigate it. It doesn't change it. It's simply an additional tool, Brandon. That's a really good question. Our intent is not to go away from Zurich. It's just an additional tool that we want our clients to be able to use. If that works
Is
for
the
you.
tool we can use instead of what we were doing, I guess is the question.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so he could just do it all for us just to make sure it got all done right. I assume in the form, there's all the questions he's going to need to know so that he can fill the whole thing out, because they're pretty detailed questionnaires to fill out.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. You are correct. And Jason is still going to be the set of eyes that is reviewing that information for claims. And if he has further questions, he will reach out to you to finalize that information.
Okay, and then is there a different one for GL versus workers' comp, because they are a little different, or you just use the same one and try and tweak the questions to work?
No, this what you see on your screen will depending on the kind of coverage that you select, will take you through the proper line of questions to complete those forms, Brandon.
Oh, that's awesome. And then I assume after he's done filling it out, we'll get a notification of the claim number, or whatever, the information we need to have on file is.
Yes, all that information is collected and you get the proper notifications.
Awesome.
Brady?
Brandon, I'll just add a correction on, you will not get a claim number. The goal of this form is to, so one of the things that we want to help with is that front end claim process, so that we're in the loop. One of the challenges we've had, again, more than welcome, and feel free to go directly to Zurich if that's working great for everyone in your companies. We want the speed of which this will happen is this form will notify Jason and Zurich immediately. We will collect this front end information. It simplifies it, so by coverage line, it'll cover all coverage lines that are in the captive. And then you will receive a loss alert ID, but it's not a claims number.
Yeah, that's good enough. And I appreciate, I love the simplification. I think it's great. I think I'll switch all of ours, because we've been doing ours directly to Zurich, but I think this is a way better way to do it, because it's the same for everything. We get a process that's way more clean. So I think this is a great win.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Please.
We end up with a copy of the information that we put in.
So the question is, do we end up with a copy of the information that you put in? The answer is yes.
Immediately.
Because you'll enter your contact information and you'll get an email from the system confirming the data. Okay?
That URL is not logical, and you're not always going to have access to the QR code. So you probably just want to bookmark that URL so you have a quick piece.
Other questions?
Hey, this is Rick. Multiple emails be put in to get copied on the incident report when it gets filled in?
Say that again, please.
Can multiple emails be put in when this is reported on the form? So that when we get a copy back, it can go also to.
Good question.
People.
Did we add multiple contact emails?
Right now, we just have the one email of the submitter. You will get the notice immediately. So recommendation would be just to forward the email that is responded, or once it responds, because once you complete it, it'll respond immediately, and then forward those emails. Zurich, like we said, Jason internally will get a copy, Zurich will get a copy, and then Jason will complete. He'll immediately start on the claims process. Is Christina on the line, or anybody from Orbit, because Orbit has been using this, and I think it's been very effective for them, but I don't know if Christine is on. Okay, well, yeah, if there's other questions, happy to bring those up. I think, Rick, you had something that you were going to add.
Yes, and first of all, I want to apologize for being a little late. I'm at another meeting and I had some time and I want to at least be on this call with you guys. Obviously, my favorite consultants as well as my favorite members of a captive. But anyway, I just want to make sure that there isn't going to be a lag of time, a lag time in this when a claim is reported through this new procedure. If Zurich is going to get a copy of the report right when it is reported by one of the insureds, that's good. And that should go directly to our care center.
Yeah.
And if that can be done, that's fine. But if it can't, then I'm afraid there's going to be some lag time. And you know as well as I do, we don't want to see that, especially on any of the work comp claims. Because you know, a lot of folks that you're doing business with might see that you're lagging in reporting your claims, and it's going to hurt you in the long run, keeping these contracts with these other business folks.
Yeah, understood. And we actually have seen it speed up and reduce lag time. And but that's something we can discuss, Rick, to make sure it's in line with what you guys want. But also a good indicator, like we said, is Orbit. So that's something we can talk about, because Orbit's been very, they've used this a lot. And so we could kind of discuss offline and make sure that what you guys have been receiving on Orbit is consistent with the lag time that you need.
Good.
Good questions, good comments. Anything else? Okay, Tim, back to you.
All right, good. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing that. That is gonna make the process simpler, and we assume more responsibility for it. Accident investigation should begin as soon as possible to minimize work disruption, because memories fade and witness stories collaborate, change. Because employees may be at risk, act quickly, but not hastily. That illustration is supposed to be pencil whipping. Don't do pencil whipping. Don't just real quickly check the boxes and fill in the blanks if you want to get this done. Take the time you need to do it well, to do it carefully. Act quickly, but not hastily. Isolate the site. If it is hazardous or evidence could be altered, keep other employees safe by barricading the site. You use caution tape or whatever else is going to work for you to be an effective barrier. Ensure that evidence remains undisturbed. There may or may not be a lot of that, but you want to protect it until you photographed it or noted it or sketched it or listed it, whatever you need to do. And then gather facts first. Chris is handing out the accident investigation form that we've used. There's a couple things about this form, and you folks who are zooming in will email you a PDF of that. It's two-sided. The front side is going to be all who, what, where, why, when. It's going to be the standard stuff you collect for any accident. It's designed primarily for comp, but it wouldn't be exclusively comp. And then the back side is going to help you ask those questions. I've said before that I hope you never get good at accident investigations. I hope you never get practiced at it. And so it's a little bit awkward, and the second side of this form just creates some check boxes to help you walk through it and get a lot more information that's going to help you zero in on root causes. So you're going to gather the facts, who is involved, not just those who were injured. If you have a drug and alcohol testing program, OSHA says that's okay, but it's not automatic. I think it's a step backwards that they've made this rule, but, because it used to be standard practice for a lot of us. We just automatically drug test when somebody's injured and sent to the clinic. But there is a good thing to what they recommend. If you have a drug and alcohol testing program, you can't just automatically test people. You have to have a reason. You know, he's been a little bit funny today. His words are slurred, his pupils are dilated, he's stumbling around. Supervisor says he's just not acting normal. There is a reason to test him. Okay, we have a tangible reason to test him. That's number one. Second thing OSHA says, and this is the good part, and this is something that was neglected before with just automatic drug testing. If you test that injured person, you have to test everybody that was involved in the accident. So there were a crew of 3 guys working. None of them were doing what they needed to do to prevent an accident from happening. Nobody said, no, we're not going to do it that way. Everybody contributed to the collapse of this rack that went down. And so all 3 need to be tested. And that just makes good sense that you're going to do that. So be thinking about the injured and those others involved in the accident in that way. What are the injuries? Property damage or environmental harm? Where did the accident happen? When did the accident happen? Those are the basic questions. And then the back side of that form, maybe we might come back to that to look at the second side of that. But use it, because it's going to be really helpful. No witnesses, evidence, and relevant records. We'll come back to that in a minute. There is a delicate instability to an accident scene. There's transient components to the scene, and there's permanent components to the scene. The 4 Ps are position, people, parts, and paper. Position refers to pieces and parts of the machine or the racking or whatever that's laying around the floor. It's going to move, and it's going to move very soon. People are going to kick it around, walking through the scene and that kind of thing, and it's going to taint that evidence if it's critical. So that's the most transient. People are pretty transient. Chris has got a story about that. The parts and the paper, the parts of the story, the parts of the equipment, all those kind of things. Those are a little bit more permanent. I have a little bit more time to check those. Paper refers to, in the course of this investigation, you're going to look at paperwork, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. Your written program, employee records, operating procedures, those sorts of things. That's what that refers to. Chris has a background, more of a background in the, what am I trying to say? I'll let you say it. I won't.
Okay. Okay. So just so you know, my disclaimer to what I'm about to say is I'm protecting the innocent in the room. Just kidding. So when I talk about claim experiences in my background and history, I think about the purpose of creating what they call an affirmative defense when things go bad. This is probably perhaps more applicable to liability type situations. But to Tim's point, people are transient. So if you have something that goes on in your business and one of your employees is a witness to that issue, and you need their statement and it becomes litigated, is it 2, 1, 2, or 3 years later when that litigation actually comes to fruition? And if that's true, where's your witness? Okay, so you think about when you get a statement from your employees that is a witness to an incident, how you should properly document that. In my example, I don't know how many people here ski or snowboard. My prior life, I worked for a business that had a couple of ski resorts. So there are a couple of kinds of different lifts that are involved in skiing. The one I want to talk about is what they call a fixed grip lift. Simply means that the lift is attached to the cable that goes up the mountain, right? And so you have a lift attendant who stands there to help the guests get on the lift, and they will generally grab that lift and hold it back. That term they use, they bump that lift, right? They hold that lift back, that chair back just enough so you can sit down and get on and go. Well, in a situation where this was going on, a guest got on the lift with her son. The attendant bumped the lift, and she was paying more attention to her son. She fell out of the chair, broke her hip, and ultimately sued the resort for negligence. Okay, well, that lift attendant is an important part of that investigation. What he did, how he was trained. In this situation, this was an employee from Argentina that was here on a work visa. 2 years later, where's the employee? Okay, to help you defend against a multi-$100,000 litigation. And so this is not unique to ski lifts. I mean, think about C-stores, hotel operations, retail operations. These kinds of things go on. And so your employees can be transient. Truck drivers, they come and go. They're tough to hire. Labor is a big issue in today's marketplace. So think about that. I'm going to run through a couple more.
Sure.
Okay. Under the title of "No Good Deed Goes Unpunished." Okay. There was a circumstance in in Colorado, where truck driver was headed back to his terminal, and he's on a 2-lane road with a middle turn lane. Okay. Traffic is backed up because there's a train going across, about a mile of backup. Truck driver can see where he wants to go, so what does he do? And mind you, it's an 18-wheeler pulling a load. Jumps into the turn lane. Dash cam video records all this, including his speed, and he's blown by cars about 35, 40 miles an hour in this turn lane. No big deal to him. He knows where he's going. He's not waiting traffic. He's going to go up here and make a left-hand turn into his terminal. What happened though was there was a little Nissan Sentra in traffic that wanted to turn to get out of there. Nissan Sentra kind of turns as he goes by at 35 miles an hour. The Nissan Sentra hits the truck and the right rear drive of the tractor. Okay, destroys the car. Right, car flips over, hits another car. Bad situation. Driver was wrong. The dash cam video proves that. But the other driver probably didn't pay attention. That's not the issue, though. The issue is the driver of the Nissan Sentra immediately retained counsel. So within 24 hours, we're getting phone calls and emails from a plaintiff's attorney. I call them ambulance chasers, dog bite attorneys, saying, and they had an extensive list of requests of information: driver training records, pre-trip inspection, drug and alcohol testing protocols and procedures, accident histories, extensive lists. If you've been through it, you probably know what I'm talking about. Okay, and you want to make the best of a difficult situation, and you're doing an investigation. The question or the point is, what should you share with the opposing attorney? Nothing. No good deed goes unpunished. I mean, it's a bad situation. You want to make the best of it, but that person asking questions of you is not there to be your friend. Okay, they're there to extract money from you for damages without a proper investigation and perhaps a proper legal process. Okay, so
what is that legal process? When do you become obligated in discovery?
I think if you've got another attorney on the line, you should have an attorney representing you, and you let that legal counsel, whether it's in-house or external, advise you on what should or shouldn't be shared. If they're your attorney, our protocol is you should be absolutely open and honest with your attorney about everything. they are your confidant, right? And you let them manage that sharing of information, okay? If you cross swords with an outside attorney, it will not go well, okay? Especially in a situation like I described, okay? Okay, my next one is under the topic of you may be the deep pocket. So what we had was again, a large tractor pulling a trailer through Echo Canyon here east of Salt Lake City, headed to Wyoming. Was early in the morning, driving, not speeding. He encountered an elk on the highway. Now, my experience is that if a driver encounters an animal, elk or deer on the road, my feeling is if there's not hair in the grill, there was no animal. You train drivers to not swerve, right? You take the animal out, which is what this driver did. He went through the elk. The unfortunate thing is the elk went under the front of the truck, damaged the steering mechanism of the tractor, caused him to lose control. He goes down the embankment, across, and onto incoming traffic with a head-on collision with another tractor, okay? The short story to this is that it cost about $1 million to defend, another $3 million to settle it. There were no fatalities, fortunately, but it was a very expensive claim. And so, did our driver do anything wrong through the investigation? No. But I don't think there's a court that's going to sit there and look at a damaged party with you sitting there at the table as a defendant and not, in this situation, and not award some benefit to the plaintiff, right? So the question is, or the point is, you may be the deep pocket. And the lesson here is that you should sit with your manager, your owner, your president. In my case, I would do this once or twice a year, and we would sit there and say, okay, this all fine and good, but we need to have some uncomfortable discussion about what could go wrong. You know, what can you create in your mind about what could go wrong in your business and how bad can it become? So I would do that once or twice a year with our president or the owners. We would paint those pictures. We would kind of define what the potential would be, and then we would say, and that's an internal discussion to your business. And then I would sit with my broker, you know, my producer, and say, here's what we think. This is what we know about our business. We need to talk about adequate limits, okay? And then you buy insurance to transfer that risk on an excess layer basis to make sure that you are adequately protected. Because in the reality, you could be the deep pocket, even though you didn't necessarily do something wrong, okay? That's just the reality of things. Okay, my last one is does late reporting prejudice your claim, your exposure to a claim? Late reporting, okay? So in this situation, we had a fuel driver delivering fuel to a mine in Colorado. The traditional process is the mine they had a large tank in their yard. They would, the safety or the site manager would measure the level in the tank and call for a delivery of fuel, which they did. Called, made arrangements for a fuel delivery. The driver shows up with a load of fuel, shows up at the gate. The site manager isn't there. He says, oh, you've been here a lot. Come on in. You know where to go. Do your business and get out of here. Driver pulls up, gets out. It's cold outside. Hooks up, starts the pump, climbs back in the trailer. Sits there. Decides to look outside the mirror. Oh no, fuel on the ground. There's a problem. Jumps out, shuts it off. He had overfilled the tank. All right. And he didn't stand there, watch to make sure that things were proper. Okay. The financial impact of this was a $10,000 fuel cleanup for contamination and pollution. and a $200,000 repair to the tank because he overfilled the tank and damaged the tank. Now, this happened in July, and I got a phone call, just a casual email saying, oh, by the way, this is what's going on. We're looking for reimbursement on this claim. Where's my $210,000? I said, for what? 6 months later, he said, oh, I thought I included you in all my emails. I said, I've never heard about or seen this. So out of an issue that was 6 months late, did it prejudice the exposure to the claim? Perhaps. Okay. So the important message here is you should identify clear lines of communication within your organization so people know, whether it's management, supervisors, store managers, truck driving managers, whatever it is, about proper communication and timely notification when things go wrong. Okay, things go wrong. We all know that. Okay, the question is, what is the process by which you share and manage that information so that you are aware of it and you can deal with it in a timely and proper way? Okay. Thank you.
I was just gonna,
Questions? Oh, yeah, you should ask questions. Any questions?
Any questions?
I was just gonna add, if, one of the things, because the loss alert form is somewhat sensitive in accuracy, one of the things that we could do to help, and one of the challenges that we constantly have heard from safety directors within your organizations, is the data collection and the accuracy of the data, or the speed of which you can receive the data, like what LiveView was saying on their video cameras. I mean, it's instantaneous, it's instant. I think that they had mentioned 4 seconds or 5 seconds with regards to getting a report on in the parking lot. One of the things that we can help custom design or help facilitate is some forms that can help direct communication to safety directors on an immediate basis. But because each company has individual needs, we would work with you guys directly to facilitate that, but just want to keep that in mind.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Witnesses include victims, others involved in the accident, and anyone else who actually saw the accident. So you're going to talk to all these people individually. Valuable information may come from others as well. And when you're addressing an accident, you're addressing an injured worker, you're there very promptly after the incident already happened. In fact, you're just a few yards away when the accident happened, so you can rush right over. Pay attention to your priorities, but also keep your ears open, because there's going to be chatter and talk around you too. And that's going to be fresh stuff. And that's going to be the best information from witnesses, because after a while, they're going to start refining a little bit what they saw or heard. And it may be factual, it may be modified a little bit. So kind of keep your ears open, listen for that chatter. Anyone who, you're going to also talk to anyone who might have heard what happened. They didn't see it, they heard it. Anyone who may have seen the area just before or after the accident. Anyone with other information concerning individuals, their equipment, their personal state, or the circumstances. Their personal state kind of gets to the drug and alcohol thing. How many times have you heard an accident but didn't see it? I mean, our line of sight is right here, but our hearing is all around us. So often we're going to hear it before we see it. A couple weekends ago, we were in Chicago visiting my son and his family, and there was a wicked windstorm. It was just incredible. But my son and I were walking to the hardware store, which happened to be about 4 blocks from where they live, so it wasn't a big deal. Super windy. All of a sudden, we heard this loud crack, and I'm just literally a few yards to our right. We heard this tree come crashing down across the street, crushed 2 cars. We could have been there, but fortunately we weren't. But we heard it before we saw it. It was a loud crack. Interestingly, in Chicago, you might park 3 blocks from where you live, and you just where you can find a space. So I went back over to that site. Not the next day, but the day after that. And one of the people whose car was under this tree still hadn't noticed, still hadn't seen their car. I wouldn't want to be there when they did. There'd be a lot of crying. Oops, wrong button. When interviewing witnesses, be sure to speak to them privately and separately. These three guys saw what happened. They saw it clearly. They were there, but you're not going to talk to them together. In fact, if you can, you'll separate them as quickly as you can and talk to them individually. One guy's interpretation is going to influence this guy's interpretation. He saw it one way, he saw it another way. But he's going to give you his statement, and then this guy's going to say, yeah, that might have been the way I saw it. It all of a sudden isn't clear to him. He's going to fudge a little bit. Interview them separately. You can sort out conflicts and information later. Put the witnesses at ease. Assure them that your intent is not to place blame, but to establish the facts. You have a disciplinary program. People are disciplined when they don't follow your operational plan and your health and safety plan. Now's not the time to discipline anybody, especially the injured person. His injury is probably not discipline. His injury is probably really good training. I used to work for a company when I worked as an electrician years ago, where our manager had he was really indifferent about safety. We didn't have a safety program per se at that point. But he was generally indifferent to those sorts of things, but then had a car accident. All of a sudden, he had a pretty good attitude towards safety. Oh, and he was at fault. It changed his mind about the way people work and what they do and how they think. So we implemented a safety program, and he was in charge of it. He did a good job. Ask them to relate their account of the accident, what, where, when, who. Listen carefully, recording in their words, and repeat back for accuracy. Okay, is this right? What I heard was, and you know, they're going to use language, and they're going to talk nonsense, and they're going to be confused at first and come back, and then, or they, you know, certainly maybe write it down exactly how they said it. If you ask them to write it out, don't make any grammatical corrections or anything. Use sick where they say an inappropriate thing or something. That just means that's the way he said it. So I'm not taking liberties. That's the way he said it. And that's just a proper way to do that. When interviewing witnesses, be sure to ask open-ended questions. Leading questions get you nowhere. Narrow your questions at the end of the interview. Do not interrupt, even for clarification. You can ask for clarification after they're done, but don't interrupt them. Ask witnesses for his or her suggestions of future controls. There may be good suggestions there, maybe not, but we're gonna try because it's gonna be fresh in their mind. Encourage further contact and ask for names and other possible witnesses. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for your help. You've been very helpful. You know how to reach me. If you think of anything else, please call. Please email me, text me, whatever. If you want to talk again, my door is open. You know, the investigation isn't over yet. Leave your door wide open and encourage them to talk. Be polite, thank the witness, and end on a positive note. Why to the fifth will get you to the root cause, hopefully. But it's a pretty good place to start. Why to the fifth just means ask why 5 times. Ask why 5 times, and you'll get more detail with each time you ask. What happened? Well, Jason was cut using the chop saw. Why was he hurt? His thumb was cut by the blade as it idled. Why did Jason get cut? There was no guard on the blade. Why was there no guard? Well, it's been broken for a week and no one's had time to replace it. Why was he being careless if he knew there was no guard? Well, we were in a hurry to get him to work, so he hadn't gone through training and didn't understand the hazards or our work rules. Why wasn't he trained? We didn't have permission to hire anyone when we needed them. So when he did get here, we were running way behind. See how the line of questions kind of got back to management? They weren't willing to put somebody to work until we really needed them. That's too late. Need to get ahead of that a little bit so that you have time to do new employee orientation and safety training and those sorts of things. So all those why questions, and sometimes you have to be pretty creative, all those why questions will get you very close to that root cause. Now look on the back of the accident investigation form you handed out. This is going to be a good outline of questions to ask. It's also going to remind you of kind of varying degrees or oop, we need another one. Oh, I guess we got it, okay. So the first one is procedures. Well, they're none developed, or they were developed, but they weren't understood. Developed but not followed. We developed procedures, but they weren't adequate procedures. See where that's going? It's just every possible permutation of the procedures question, you're gonna follow up on and answer. Communication issues, the hazard itself, hurrying is going to be a big factor in a lot of accidents. Their safety training, the facilities and equipment itself, personal factors, human factors. They're distracted. They've got financial problems at home. They've got problems in their marriage. They've got problems that who knows what. It's just, teenagers, whatever it is. Their mind and their sight wasn't on what they were doing. And then other factors as well. There's a list of possible corrective actions that are at least going to steer you in the right direction. And we'll talk more about their risk analysis in a minute. So that's going to help you a lot with these why questions. Ask why at least 5 times until there are no more real answers. I've asked why, and we kind of keep coming back to the same thing, and you just have a gut feeling we're not there yet. I need to find another line of questions. Or answers stop directing you to a correctable cause. Remember, the root cause is never the same as the immediate cause, and sometimes there is no root cause. Can you think of a situation where there maybe is not a root cause? And don't use the term freak accident. I don't like those. Well, Chris and I were talking yesterday, and he brought up the deep pocket story. That was a situation where really there was no root cause. There was nothing the driver could have done differently. In fact, he did exactly what he was trained to do. And still there was an accident. There was nothing anybody could have done differently. There was no correctable cause to the accident. So there is no root cause. That's not going to happen often, and don't be tricked by that because you haven't asked the right questions or enough questions. Well, there must not be a root cause. Maybe, but there probably is. So just be careful about that. Look at physical evidence closely. Evidence provides information that witnesses alone cannot. Because of physical evidence, the accident scene should remain undisturbed until the investigation is complete. Maybe not until the entire investigation is complete, but you're done taking pictures and making sketches and taking notes and asking questions. If you suspect any hazardous energy sources, don't neglect your company's blackout tagout procedures. That's just for your own safety. Take careful notes. Physical evidence provide. Oh, is that duplicated? Oh, it was. Sorry about that. Include when you're taking notes. Include details that show you are paying attention to details. again, if there's litigation later, it's going to be positive for you that you've made notes about all this stuff. And that you're proactive and concerned about your employee safety. But the details I'm talking about is the type of equipment, brand, condition, setting, ID number, size, voltage, amperage, pressure, temperature, state or status. You're going to record whatever information there's on gauges, distinguishing features, etc. Just all that stuff. I know it just sounds like a lot of detail, but depending on the incident, if you notice something, write it down because it's going to be important or could be important. Draw diagrams, sketch the scene, show location of people, equipment, materials. Carefully note sizes and locations of perishable or transient evidence such as spills, dust, footprints, tire tracks. You can take pictures of those. Include anything that could possibly be important later. Photographic evidence. This is important. You're going to take a lot of pictures, but there's some tricks to picture taking. Start with pictures of the general area, kind of a high and wide picture, not too wide, but wide enough that you capture the whole scene, and then take tight storytelling shots. Pictures that you could lay out in a sequence that's gonna tell a story or more about what happened. Include your grade school ruler in detailed shots for scale. You have a 6-inch ruler or some other thing that a good positive reference for size for small detailed things. It's going to be helpful. Use the frame counter on your camera or your phone to help keep a log of the photos you shoot. Photograph the injury if possible. Do not delay the treatment or serious injury for the sake of a photo op. Well, let's look at some examples here. Know the difference in effect of a wide angle or telephoto zoom lens and use it wisely. These are two pictures of the same scene taken from the same position, one with a wide angle lens, one with a telephoto lens. Wide angle lens got a nice wide view. Look how far away that building looks. But with a telephoto lens, it's a little bit narrower, here to here. And look how close all this looks. Telephoto lens is going to compress everything like that, and it's going to be a deceptive look. It's going to make somebody who's standing close to that ledge look like they're a lot closer than they really are. That's what I think. Keep that in mind. If you're taking pictures with your phone, though, those aren't lenses like on a SLR. They're digital lenses. So it really doesn't have that compressing look quite so much as this does. But with a regular camera, you will get that. So just be careful about that. You don't want to create a deceptive look to the scene. Some other helpful tips on a lot of accidents will happen on stairs, on or around stairs. This is at the top of the stairs looking down. How do I know that? You can't tell. But here's from the bottom of the stairs looking up. I can see the risers, I can see the treads, I can see the seam. It's all in good condition. I can see that each tread is marked with abrasive tape. I see the platform at the top is all intact. There's no cracks, no holes, no pits. I can see the bricks at the bottom. This is at the bottom looking up. It's much, much better perspective for that sort of thing. And keep that in mind with any scene, not just stairs. I might take a picture of the same thing from 4 different angles. This is a broader view from a little bit lower angle, and it's going to show the whole thing. The railings are all intact. They're anchored well. They're not rusted anywhere. The stairs, the entire width of the stairs is in good shape. You know, I've caught an angle where I'm not showing much of anything else, but I am showing the stairs they're concerned about. If you take, this is important, if you take photographs, upload photographs to management ASAP. keeping only what you need to complete your report, then send those to. Do not share them with other employees. What, did you see that accent? Here, look at the, I'll show you what happened. Don't share it with other employees. Do not share them with friends and family of the injured party. Do not upload them to social media. Do not volunteer them to OSHA.
Can I comment real quick, Tim?
Yeah.
So on the topic of photos of injuries or blood, my experience is no. That doesn't necessarily add to an investigation, in my opinion. But what it does do under discovery is build an argument for the plaintiff. Look how bad this was. Look how painful this probably was. You know, and they may have their photos. Well, let them have their photos, but I don't think we should make their job easier. You know, as a risk manager, it's my philosophy that that's just a problem. And so my suggestion is, if someone falls down on your premise and is injured, breaks their leg or a finger or whatever it is, help them, get care for them. Don't take a picture of it. Now, document the scene after the fact, before the scene changes, but, get the injured person care, get them to the hospital or wherever it is, and then document the scene, but don't take pictures of the injury. That's my feeling on that.
The other side of that, and that's valid, I get that completely. The other side of that is the injury was not what they're claiming it was. Address that.
Well, if they go to the hospital, there's going to be an emergency report. There's going to be a doctor report. You're going to ask for all that information, and you're going to use that as the basis of what is and what isn't.
Good point. Good point.
Rick Springer or Brian McCon, do you guys have anything to add on that?
Hey,
I always tell people when they're taking accident scene photos, avoid the blood in court. We really don't need to see that. We need to see the how and why it happened. I don't want to see bones sticking out of people's arms.
But you may want to see their position on the.
Yeah. If it's relevant to the cause, it's needed. But if it's a pool of blood.
For those of you that couldn't hear, Brian had mentioned just, consistent with what Chris had mentioned as far as avoiding some of those and gore photos. But Rick, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to reiterate that too. Basically, you don't want to share those photos yet. And if you do get the photos, it's best to get them not while the loss is occurring, obviously, and seeing a injured party down there, but as soon as possible without the change, any condition changes. They're going to come out anyway, because if it does go into litigation, the plaintiff will ask for any investigation, including photos that you may have. So I would just keep that until it's actually requested by the other side.
Okay. Yeah, good points, all those. When you give the photos to the management, they're unedited, and give them all. Let management decide what to do with them. But give them all the pictures that you took. All right. Examine equipment materials, so work environment material. We kind of touched on this already. Position and condition of materials used in the operation may indicate improper handling or prior damage. Pay close attention to positions and readings of controls, switches, gauges. Look for indications of the condition of the equipment and common maintenance points. Check to see the controls, safeguards, and warning devices are operational and in good working order. And note environmental conditions such as lighting, weather, noise, housekeeping, as well as you can. Remove faulty equipment from service until you're certain it is safe to use. And then check paper records. And there's basically 4 kinds of records we want to look at. Employee HR records, such as employment history, disciplinary action, and health records. Licenses, certifications, and training records. That's going to be pertinent to the employee, not just the injured employee, but others involved too. Equipment records, maintenance logs, service reports, operating manuals, manufacturer specs, and if you have operational procedures beyond the manufacturer, include those. Job or task records describing standard operating procedures in your health and safety plan. And if you've used job hazard analysis before on a particular piece of equipment, say a piece of lifting equipment like a crane or something, include those that you're going to look at for reference. And previous accident investigation reports. This isn't the first time somebody's been injured doing that or with this piece of equipment. Let's see what happened then. The ultimate aim of every accident investigation is to prevent similar accidents from reoccurring, but clearly understanding both how and why an accident happens, you can recommend positive, decisive, and meaningful corrective actions. And I should add creative. Some of the best solutions have been entirely out of the box. Taking a close look at all the details and say, let's try this. We've never tried this before. I've never seen anybody do this before, but let's try it. Make recommendations carefully or they won't solve the problem. Be specific with your recommendations. Be specific about management expectations when you're training employees. Discuss recommendations with all those involved and affected. You're not ready to disseminate the information and the solutions. You're going to sit down, have a good discussion with those that were involved in the accident, or it may be just a passive discussion, depends on the situation. But get their input, that's going to be valuable. And then hold everybody accountable for meeting that deadline that we talked about, following up on their work practices, those sorts of things. And of course, the deadline. Okay, Chris, you want to touch on some of this data stuff? This is good info. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're not at yours.
No, you're not quite there.
Go ahead. That was my fault.
You're good.
I was jumping.
Keep going, keep going.
This is another valuable tool. It doesn't specifically relate to accident investigations, but it's a way to assess an operation while you're investigating. And that's just a basic risk assessment matrix. On one side of this chart is the potential severity, and we've talked about this before. There's a big difference between a possibility and a potential. You know, is there a big potential for injury in this operation? No, not big, but it's possible. No, oh, no, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never had a problem. That doesn't mean it's not possible. So the other axis then is probability. So in severity, we have catastrophic, critical, marginal, or negligible. Negligible meaning paper cut, just a scratch. Catastrophic meaning life-threatening. So that's the potential severity of this operation. And then there's the probability. How frequently is somebody exposed to injury with this piece of equipment or this operation? Frequently, likely, occasional, seldom, or very unlikely. Or what's the probability of them actually being injured? Frequently, likely, occasionally, seldom, or unlikely. And if you've got a 4, that's going to be pretty high. It's pretty frequent exposure to a very serious injury. It's just going to be a tool to use to evaluate the hazards of a particular operation. Even though it's after the accident, it's still a tool. And that's just another way of doing the same thing. Potential severity, frequency of exposure, probability of the injury, score 1 to 5, 1 being negligible, 5 being very serious. This is a score of 10. 3 to 5 is kind of a moderate risk. These are 10, or you want to monitor, but you don't need to make immediate changes. 6 to 10, though, it needs attention. and then 11 to 15 for a total score, you need to address that immediately with big steps. So this actually can be applied even before an accident, but it's just, again, it's a way to evaluate the hazard. You want to add anything to that from your perspective?
No, I mean, making sure you look at all the processes and objectively. Work is imagined and work as it's actually done. From a management standpoint, a lot of times we'll design a process that should be inherently safe. But when we put the process into place, we don't necessarily pay attention to how people are actually doing the job.
Hasn't been tested yet.
Yeah, we gotta look for those cascading variances and, we imagine these steps to take place, but they're actually taking these steps. Where can we eliminate that hazard now?
Yeah, that's a good point, the way we imagine it versus the real world. Yeah, good. And then like any company policy, don't expect to make a single statement and seek instant cooperation. Get your message across using memos or signage, extra training if you need to, it's regular inspections. JHAs are very, very helpful. Employee performance observations, that's when employees are seeing something and they report it to management or supervisor. We could be doing this a lot safer, or I don't feel safe with this machine, but if we did this, I think it would help. Really build that into your culture. Safety meetings, hopefully you're doing regular safety meetings. And that's Chris's introduction.
Thank you, Tim. Excellent discussion. So in the interest of time, we're going to, there's something else I think that we want to get to with what time that we have left. So the data and the statistics of losses within the program, we're going to save for now, and we'll get into those in great detail, take a deep dive in January at the board meeting. So I want to transition the discussion to risk control and loss control services. Morton has an excellent team of people. If by virtue of our discussion today, you've thought about something in your business that you might need another set of eyes on, Morton stands ready to help you with that. Russ Norman, Ty Norman, Morgan Henry constitute a great department of people who have great background and experience. And their service is available, I don't want to say for free, but very affordably, right? Almost free, to come out and help you with your businesses. If there's something that you need someone to lay some eyes on, to help you do some analysis, to do some risk control. And as we've talked about this aspect of our business here at Morton and at Sequoia, that we identified something within that area called Xywave. It's a training program. It's a learning management system. And we have Leandro here from Colonial Building Supply, who we had a conversation with, 2 months ago, Leandro, something like that, as they were looking at a learning management system for their business and their operations and their employees and training. And I'm going to let him describe it, because Leandro's kind of taken this by the horns. They were in the process of evaluating systems. And when we had a conversation, they found out that this is a product and a service that has helped them. And we've invited them to come take a little bit of time to tell us what their experience was, if it was good, if it was bad, how it helped them, how they've used it. And so I'm going to turn the time over to Leandro to do that. And let's we can navigate that. Leandro, you got that? Okay.
Close that browser that I had open before.
I didn't close it.
It should still be up there.
Should still be there as a
You might have to close some.
Jamison, what did you do?
Still.
Still a mess. So I leave the.
Start top left one.
Good morning, my name is Leandro. I work at Columbia Building Supply as a safety manager for about a year, 20 years before the software industry. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about Zywave. It's only gonna take a couple hours. Just kidding, 5 minutes. Okay, so a couple months ago, I got a phone call from Safety Scales. They're a software industry that develops online training. So you can create users, you can create groups, and then link everything and send training to the users. So they have a buffet of a bunch of courses. You know, I went through a lot of those courses, trying to figure out what's going to be beneficial for us and what it's not. So I haven't had time to go through everything yet. So I'm just going to scan really quick what it does. I'm not going to show you how to use, just to show you what it does, and then you can figure out if it works for you. And you guys can give me a call. I can help you the best I can. So the first page here. It's just like it's the landing page, the home page has like a bunch of shortcuts to everything that's down here. So I'm not going to scan that. Let's go over. So okay, so we have to change the resolution for whatever, because this shouldn't be displaying like that. Okay, so this assignment page here is going to show a list of all the users and everything they have opened, they have completed. The no due dates, because you can change, you can add the due dates, no due dates, or a month or a week, whatever you want. You can also set to like resend the course again in a year. So the next one is employee management. So you can add employees here, and then you can import. To import employees, you have to use this thing called a SCORM files. It's something that there's like in a template that you add all the information there. You can import everything at once instead of doing one at a time. So the next one, and then from here, then you can manage, you can add to the group. So the group management is the next one. What is it? So you can create the users, but you don't associate them to a group. So that would be like an inactive user in a way, not yet. But when you go from here, then you can just click manage. Then you can delete the group. You can add the group. You can add all the courses there. Okay. Course category. That's where the big buffet is. So there's a bunch of different categories. So for us, you know, we use something like that's where the forklift is. So how are we going to use this? So this is something. So I've been training people how to get their forklift certification, showing YouTube videos, having like a 1 hour, 2 hour talk, you know. But this has 11 courses, and at the end there's a quiz. So instead of wasting all that time, I'll just have those guys do it, and at the end I'll just go and do like the practical test on the forklift, make sure they know, and then I can also ask questions, you know. So my training, so that's my individual page. That's where all my training is. It's gonna show me what's completed, what started. So how is this gonna work for us? You know, we have a little problem. 90% of our employees, they're not office people. They're on the road for 10, 12 hours a day. They don't really want to spend like an hour, 2 hours going through all that stuff. So Cody and I were talking, maybe one of the good ways to do it, like when we have our safety meetings, go over like a couple of those videos. You know, the way we can now, because the point is just to get all the information out now. But for the specific stuff like the forklift, then I'm gonna have them go over everything. They can come to my office and do it over there, and I can help them. Okay, and there's a bunch of questions here. There's a page that you can contact them, you can send emails, you can make a phone call, whatever works for you. So I came from the software industry, so I look at everything, every software, every page with like, you know, analytic eye, and I found a bunch of bugs or enhancements, no ideas. So, and I did that with other programs that we use AutoAssist for a pre-trip inspection. And I sent them emails like, how about you guys do this? How about this? And they implemented all my ideas. So I have a bunch of cool ideas that I'm going to text those guys, email those guys, and then go from there. Okay, so again, I'm gonna have to finish watching all those videos, go through all that training and see what's gonna work for us and what it's not, and then we're just gonna go from there. You know, I think this is gonna be a very beneficial tool. You know, where I worked before had something like that, and I was actually part of the development team, and it worked really good. I'm used to it. It's gonna be harder to implement, you know, at first because they're not used to the stuff. They're used to the papers to the pre-trip. Now we added this online stuff, and all the training was like face to face. Now we're gonna do this. You know, but I think, you know, it's gonna be beneficial, and it's come up to, you know, new technologies. Okay, any questions? Comments?
How difficult is it to set this up on our own computer?
It's not difficult at all. You're just gonna create an account, you know, and then you. So, I mean, I can show you how to do all that stuff. So you create the users, and then they'll have like an email address, deactivate, activate. And then the second that I link all that stuff, it's really, really user-friendly, very easy to use. The second that you link the user to the group, because, you know, separate groups, like, you know, the mill work, the sheetrock, the yard guys, and then you figure out what course needs to go to what group, and then you can select send to all. And the ones that are already completed, so new people, I'm not gonna send to all, no, it's gonna send only to those guys that haven't completed that course yet. It's really easy, boom. Nice.
And you set up a computer at work for them to do that at, or they're doing it at home, or either?
That's what I'm trying to, you know, to figure out the best way. I asked my drivers to do, like, you know, to send balls effort. Like, tell me what do you think about this? I sent you a couple training, couple courses. You know, some of those guys did it, some didn't. Again, they work for 12 hours. They're not gonna go home. I'm not getting paid for this, you know. So I'm planning to do like the stuff that's for forklift, the stuff that has to be done, the training for certification. Just come do in my office, you know, and the other stuff we're probably gonna have to do most of it when you do the safety meetings.
Their work to do. They don't feel like sitting in front of it.
Exactly, yeah. The software even was awesome because everybody's on here all day, you know, just like 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there. But for those guys, it's really hard, but we'll figure out like.
Good, good.
We got a chat, we got a question up here. What is this?
Oh, I'm done. I'm not
You're good.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, we will be sending out a copy of the presentation after the call. Just to kind of wrap up, just like to say thank you to Live Technologies for the time and the presentation today. Hopefully you felt that that was worth your time and that spurred some thought or some ideas about security and support and information available to you as a resource and a tool. Tim, thank you for your presentation today on incident investigation. Coming out of retirement and traveling this long distance to be with us. We appreciate your being with us and sharing your experience and knowledge with us. That was very, very good and very detailed. And Leandro, thank you for taking the time on the learning management system. I think, you know, to the degree that what he touched on, just a piece of it, there's a tremendous amount of content in there. And it might be worth your time to kind of investigate a little bit. There's a solution there that might help you with training or learning needs within your organization. And we'd be happy to support you with that. And we just appreciate everybody's time coming today. We appreciate Zurich's presence, loss control, underwriting, good people, they're good partners. We appreciate that business relationship very much. And it forms a good working relationship for us to make these things happen. Before we shut this down, any questions or comments here in the room or online? Good, you're all asleep. That's good. That's good. Right. You guys have a great day. Take care. We'll see you.
Thank you.